You might have some questions about Odell Beckham and Devin Singletary, James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster, Courtland Sutton, so many more players with tough matchups, and will be difficult decisions for your lineups in Fantasy Week 15. Well, we're previewing 7 games on today's show, and we're going to revisit the Thursday night game a little bit too, catch you up on the latest news and notes, and have some rankings debates. Hope you're ready. Let's get started right now on Fantasy Football Today. 8 games to preview today. Can't wait. Let's get Week 15 started. Semifinals, here we go. Jets and Ravens kick it off tonight. Welcome to the show, everybody. Adam Azer with Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, Heath Cummings, going to tell you about matchups for Courtland Sutton, Tom Brady, Joe Mixon, Baker Mayfield. We've got a segment called Heath is Wrong. Very excited for that. Hey, what's going on, Heath? How you doing?
It's kind of ironic that it's Week 15 and you owe America 15 push-ups.
How about that? You did it. You put it on Twitter. You did your 15 push-ups. I will do mine in installments, 5 per day for the next 3 days. Something like that. See how many we can do. Jamie, what's up?
How are you, bud?
I'm good. I got some real good stats, good nuggets for today's show. Dave, would you like to hear my Courtland Sutton stat?
Not as much as I'd like to see you do 15 push-ups with your cat Zoe on your back.
Oh, my gosh. She woke me up like 6 times today, so I'm a little grumpy. Here's my Courtland Sutton stat. He's at Kansas City. The Chiefs have had 6 home games this year. No wide receiver has 60 yards. In these 6 home games, no visiting wide receiver has 60 yards against the Chiefs. Only B.C. Johnson caught a touchdown. One caveat there, Will Fuller could have had a huge game and he just kept dropping it. But how crazy is that they've been that good against wide receivers at home? Start or sit Courtland Sutton this week?
I still have him as a number 2 receiver.
Same.
It's toward the bottom of the list of number 2 receivers, but I'm ignoring last week. I know last week was a total dud, especially in non-PPR. It made you puke, but I still see him as the best receiver in Denver. Really, he's the only wide receiver. He's the only wideout for the Broncos that's caught a touchdown this year, who's currently on the team.
I've got him as a borderline number 2, but borderline number 2 isn't great this week because of all the injuries we had. Like, there are several guys that were available on the waiver wire that I would start over Courtland Sutton. D.D. Westbrook. I would start Debo over him. I'd start Darius Slayton over him.
A.J.
Brown over him. So I don't think he's a definite start. He's right in that borderline range depending on who you picked up.
Agreed.
He had 6 catches for 87 yards in the first meeting against the Chiefs back in Week 7, and gets 7 to 9 targets in every game except for 1, which is pretty good, and usually gives you a pretty nice floor. All right, so that's Courtland Sutton, and let's talk about some players we love, players we hate this week. Jamie, who's a player you love?
I still think DeAndre Washington is worth, holding on to right now or picking up where available. This whole thing is weird after what John Gruden said yesterday. So I'm going to stick with him. I think he's going to end up getting a good workload here, even if Josh Jacobs plays. So you're not going to trust him if Jacobs is active, but
right. So you don't love him if
I do.
Jacobs plays. If Jacobs plays, you're not going to love him.
No, but I think he's still going to be the main running back for the Raiders this week.
It's a love-hate relationship. You're either
Yes.
Well, that's either going to give us a great DeAndre Washington or a bad situation in the Oakland backfield against Jacksonville, unfortunately.
It sounds like John Gruden doesn't want to play Josh Jacobs.
Well, I want him to play Josh Jacobs, so you know what? I don't care.
But it makes you wonder who leaked it to Ian Rappaport and whether that person, like, no one's above John Gruden.
Mayock.
Is he?
Could be Jacobs can't. He wants to play.
Could be.
Yeah. It could be.
Dave, who do you love?
Player I love this week. I love Baker Mayfield. Going up against the Cardinals, easiest matchup you can get against the coach who he parted ways with while in college. Baker's not petty, is he? He's not going to hold a grudge. Great matchup for his receivers. Yeah. I don't know if that's true. I think he goes out there and tries to put on a show, and it could actually end up being a moderately high-scoring game between those two teams, and I see Mayfield as a top 12 quarterback this week.
Can he put on a show, though? That's the question.
Well, why couldn't he?
Well, we thought he was going to do that last week, too, and he didn't against the Bengals at home.
Bengals are good.
Typically where he's
No, they're not.
Which is typically where he's played well. I just don't know. I mean, Beckham just seems like he's out there going through the motions because he's not 100%.
That's true. He's not. You watch him play.
And can he get enough out of just Landry at this point?
I bet
He's
Beckham
only
is
reliable
okay.
guy.
Beckham will be okay.
I am scared to death of starting Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, same.
Again, it just comes back to how are you going to feel when you wake up Monday morning if you started a quarterback averaging 15 fantasy points a game and he gives you 15 fantasy points and you lose. I'm not going to feel very good about that.
I lost a playoff matchup last week because of Baker's poor performance. I lost by 2.
Yeah. By my count, he's had 4 good matchups this year. And you could debate whether or not the Jets are a good matchup because the Jets had a 3 or 4 game stretch where they were awful. And other than that, they've actually been pretty solid this year. But he scored 17 points at the Jets, 6 point per passing touchdown league. 17 points. I think that was week 2, week 3, whatever it was. 20 points against Seattle. All right, 17 at the Jets, 20 points against Seattle, 29 against the Dolphins, which is why I was so excited. I thought he'd do great against the Bengals. He had a horrible game, 10 points against the Bengals. He's had a brutal schedule. Cardinals, as Dave said, give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Last week, Devlin Hodges had a 117.5 passer rating against the Arizona Cardinals. He only scored 15 points, but he completed 16 of 19 passes. So if there's any team that Baker's going to do it against, it's going to be the Cardinals. That was one of our rankings disputes, but I think you just heard it. Dave likes him, likes Baker Mayfield, and Heath and Jamie have him as a sit, which brings us to Heath, the player you love.
No, for me,
week.
he's in that middle junk area of.
Okay.
I can think of no better way to describe it.
I could see him play well, but I have no faith in him.
Eli Manning or Baker Mayfield?
Eli.
Carson Wentz or Baker Mayfield?
Mayfield.
David Blau or Baker Mayfield?
Same.
I would go Baker Mayfield.
Okay, there we go. Now I got you on the Mayfield train.
All right, great. Heath, who do we love? Who do you love?
I think I'm kind of alone on this one this week, but I do love Anthony Miller still. He has more targets than Allen Robinson over the past month. He has really performed well on a per-target basis. Last week, we saw the targets go down, but he still caught a touchdown. I do think the Bears are going to have to throw the ball a little bit against the Packers in this game. And so I love him as a top 20 wide receiver.
He's part of the secret sauce for why Mitchell Trubisky has 20 fantasy points in 4 of his past 5. Mitchell Trubisky or Baker Mayfield?
Drove Trubisky by about 10 spots.
Baker. I don't think Trubisky plays well.
I like Baker better than Trubisky, too.
I think this is a bad game for Trubisky this week.
I think Trubisky's in the junk for me. But Anthony Miller is not. He's a number 2 receiver.
The middle junk. That's what you get to hear about on Fantasy Football Today. Did you say this or not? Anthony Miller or Courtland Sutton?
Miller.
I'll still take Sutton.
I believe I have Sutton higher than Miller, but they're both toward the low end of the wide receiver 2 range.
All right, let's see who we hate this week. Start with you, Dave. I don't hate
you,
but who do you
such
hate?
A strong word. I'm not going to start Juju. I know that he's back. I know everybody's happy that he's back. If I'm still playing fantasy football, I got to this point without Juju Smith-Schuster. He's taking on Buffalo. We have no idea how good or bad he's going to be. I'm going to continue to sit Juju Smith-Schuster.
Okay, I think that's a safe bet for sure. Jamie?
Kirk Cousins. Don't like the matchup for him against the Chargers. They've been fantastic against quarterbacks all season long, and I think this is going to be a tough game for him. I think this is one of those games where you can see the Vikings looking ahead. They have 2 division opponents coming up after this game, 2 tough opponents after this game that could decide their playoff fate. And so I think, as we've seen with Cousins, sometimes he just manages through the game. I think, again, you look at the Chargers and their defense and what they've done against opposing quarterbacks all season long, especially now that they're healthy. So I think Cousins is going to be under 20 fantasy points, not somebody I'd be excited about starting.
Baker or Cousins?
Baker.
I've got him 11-12 in my.
I think I have him 24-25. So they're right in the same range.
Cousins just inside my top 24. I think it's a rough week for him.
The only time Cousins has been bad since like week 4 has been when the Vikings haven't needed him. He's come through at Seattle. He's come through against the Cowboys. Came through at Kansas City. Was it at Kansas City? I think so.
Yeah. Kansas City, Broncos.
I'm sticking with Cousins
this
as a
is
top 12
all
guy.
those teams.
In that building?
All of a sudden, the Chargers defense is amazing because they shut down Gardner Minshew.
Amazing? No, but look at the numbers against quarterbacks all throughout the season. There's been 2 guys over 20 fantasy points against them. So they do a great job in just limiting opposing passing games. Now they have Derwin James back. Their secondary's healthy. The pass rush is healthy. And so I think you're looking at a situation where Cousins doesn't have a big game. I think he'll be fine. 17, 18 points. I think that's okay. I just don't think he's going to go above 20 fantasy points.
I think he will.
Yeah, they give the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. They also see the fewest pass attempts in the NFL.
If only the Vikings had a running game.
They play slow and ugly.
They don't really have a great running game lately. this is one of the stats I wanted to give out.
Well, the
This might
Chargers' run
surprise
defense
you.
has been good.
Hold on.
You've talked about that, James.
Yeah, hold on.
Both.
Though.
Their
This might
defense as a
surprise
whole
you.
has been good.
This might surprise you. Dalvin Cook is averaging 3.35 yards per carry in his last 5 games. Meanwhile, in their last 5 games, the Chargers are giving up 3.42 yards per carry.
Their defense
so by
is good.
no means am I saying
when they're healthy,
scores. But
when they're healthy,
crazy.
their defense is good, and they're healthy now.
Juju Smith-Schuster, Kirk Cousins. Let's move on. Heath, who's the player you hate this week?
I'm going to go with Matt Ryan. The San Francisco 49ers got gashed by Drew Brees at Coors Field, but we're not going to hold that against them. They've given up 12.5 fantasy points per game at home. Matt Ryan's outside, doesn't have Calvin Ridley. Still has good weapons, but doesn't have all of his weapons, and I just don't want to trust him this week.
You see the injuries in the secondary for San Francisco.
And pass rush.
Well, they lost D4, but they still have Bosa, Buckner, Armstead. Like to me, the pass rush is still going to be good. Losing D4 isn't enough for me to knock that, but the secondary that does have some holes in it. But I can't call him a top 12 quarterback this
No,
year.
I agree, but I think it's going to have one of those ugly garbage time performances where he ends up with good fantasy production. So it's not going to be one of those aesthetically pleasing games where like we saw from Breeze against the 49ers last week, but I still think he's going to have he'll be above 20 fantasy points this week. Not a must start, though. I agree with you. Not a must start, but somebody that I think will still be good.
Okay, so that's Matt Ryan, and yeah, it's Richard Sherman's out, and then you've got a cornerback, Kawan Williams, has a concussion.
He's their slot
safety,
corner. Yep.
Jaquiski Tart has injured ribs, so they might be out 3 important members of their secondary. And of course Calvin Ridley out, so we're not seeing these teams at full strength here in Week 15. So again, we love DeAndre Washington if Josh Jacobs is out. Baker Mayfield for Dave, not so much for Heath. Anthony Miller for Heath. Juju we don't like. Kirk Cousins, Dave likes. Heath and Jamie don't. And Matt Ryan is someone that we're probably going to get away from. Some things to promote. The Apple Podcast Review Mailbag. You know what to do. Ask your questions on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a nice review. We'll read them on Saturday. The Facebook giveaway. The biggest lesson you've learned this season. Get yourself a T-shirt. They're awesome. Go to our Facebook page, Fantasy Football Today. The DFS Podcast. If you didn't hear it, we dropped a bonus episode in the feed on Wednesday night. And it was great. It was Heath and Mike McClure talking DFS for this week. And, of course, speaking of DFS, you want to join our FanDuel League, go to FanDuel.com/league/FFT. FanDuel.com/league/FFT. I want to read this email from Matt, email of the day. You've helped me immensely through my regular fantasy football season, and I'm writing the playoffs in both my leagues. Having some help now with DFS in these bonus pods is awesome. I'm already counting my winnings. That said, I'm now worried that Heath saying, quote, "Let's get weird," is going to haunt my dreams for the rest of eternity.
What was that? He was not the only person to have that comment. In fact, I've seen it like 6 times now. I went back and listened to me saying it. I thought maybe I said it in like a suggestive way or something. I have no idea why people are saying that.
You said weird as if it ends with a T.
But that wouldn't haunt someone's dreams.
No, it shouldn't haunt somebody's dreams. It should make people...
Is suggestive.
Like no one typed it.
Let's get weird is suggestive?
Yeah, let's get weird is suggestive. I don't really want to get into it. Here's a shout out of the day. Some of our youngest listeners. What's up, Caleb, Joshua, and Isaiah? They are 12, 9, and 7 years old, respectively. They listen to our podcast with their dad. They joined their first fantasy football league this season. It's a 4-team league with their dad and the 3 of them. All 4 teams went 7-7, and the playoffs start this week. So that's great. Yeah, and welcome to the world of fantasy football. Thanks for listening. I want to revisit the Thursday night game real quick, guys, with a couple of updates. Ryan Griffin's out. Demaryius Thomas, I think, is doubtful. I mean, Robby Anderson, he's got to fall into some production, right? Or
that's
Sam
what I think.
Darnold's not going to throw for 100 yards, right?
He might.
What do you guys think?
No,
I don't know.
I don't want to start
There's not one Jets
Robby
player
Anderson.
that I would like to play this week at all.
Not even Le'Veon?
Not even Le'Veon.
I don't want to start Le'Veon.
No.
All right. I guess I'm the only one here. I'm okay with Le'Veon, and if I was really forced to, like I couldn't have picked up anybody off the waiver wire, I guess I'd go with Robby. It does make me feel a little gross, but he's been playing like the number 1 receiver for the Jets. He's been getting a lot of targets, and his speed is a factor. And he's running across the field, and they're going to be trailing. And I'm with you, Adam. I think he could fall into some production.
I'm starting him in our YOLO Dynasty League just because I have terrible wide receivers. But I think Corey Davis is my other. Corey Davis.
Yeah, I would, of course, but not A.J. Brown.
No,
not Darius Slayton.
I'd start Amendola over Robby Anderson in PPR.
I would too.
I would not, but I understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
And then with Le'Veon, he's getting 20 touches a game. This Ravens run defense has been good. It hasn't been great. It's a short week. He's got fresh legs after he bowled a 251. He's going to be able to get you modest numbers in non-PPR, obviously better in PPR.
Okay. Let me just ask this. Would you start Robby Anderson over either Devin Singletary or James Conner in that Sunday night match?
No.
Okay. Hey, man, look, James Conner, you got to feel a little nervous about, right?
Oh, for sure, but not as nervous as I am about any Jets player. I start Conner over Le'Veon.
Okay. That's interesting. So let's get sorry, last thing. Baltimore left tackle Ronnie Stanley is doubtful, and here's a quote from Lamar Jackson. If I have to be out there all 4 quarters, that's what it's going to be. I'm not going in there thinking I should sit out a little bit. I'm trying to win the game, and that's what we're going into Thursday night game looking at. Does that inspire a lot of confidence in you? Like, talking about being out there for all 4 quarters? He's playing, but is he gonna, does he deserve to be the number 1 or number 2 quarterback in your ranking?
I mean, that's debatable. I don't think anybody that has Lamar Jackson is looking at it and saying, I'm gonna sit in for Ryan Tannehill. That's just not in anybody's mentality. So where he's ranked is irrelevant.
I've seen a lot of Deshaun Watson, or not a lot. I've seen some Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson.
I guess if you have that situation, you could probably take the safe route. You want to go Deshaun Watson, that's fine. I just look at it this way, that if he's sitting, they have a lead. How they got the lead is probably him having some part in it.
Yeah, would you feel better if Lamar said, well, the plan is we're going to go score 35 in the first half so I don't have to play in the second half so I can rest up?
Who talks about playing all 4 quarters? That's a guy who's
well, he's asked about his injury
right now.
He's asked about his injury, so he's giving an answer to the question about his injury. I mean, if he's starting, you're starting him in your fantasy league. I mean, that's just that simple.
All right. And if you're going to the game, I hope you're using SeatGeek, everybody. Get the SeatGeek app and use the promo code FFT for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. You know what to do. It's the best app. It makes ticket buying so easy. The other companies, the other websites, the other apps, they just don't care about the customer experience, but SeatGeek does. Makes getting to the game so easy. It's not just the game, by the way. Music, comedy, theater, wherever you want to go, use the SeatGeek app to get there and the promo code FFT. So I'll be using it. I'm going to be in Florida in a couple of weeks, looking at a couple of events down there. Going to be looking at the SeatGeek app, and great prices and great deals. You can see the best deals on the SeatGeek app with these big green dots that show you these are the tickets that you want to buy. You can filter so that you see all the fees up front. I love that feature. And really, I recommend it to everybody. So download the SeatGeek app, use the promo code FFT, and get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase with the promo code FFT on SeatGeek. We'll run through the news and notes here. Daniel Jones practiced, but he's not. I don't know if he practiced, but he's not expected to play. He's making progress. We're still expecting Eli Manning.
He practiced with the second team.
We're still expecting Eli Manning against the Dolphins. Patrick Mahomes said his hand is good to go. Dak Prescott has an injured finger on his right hand. He has a bruised left wrist. Is he still a start for you, Mahomes, against the Rams? Prescott, pardon me, against the Rams.
Yes.
Both of them.
Low-end starter for Dak.
Pat Prescott and Dak Mahomes. Sorry
what about
for
Jameis
stepping on my joke.
With the broken hand?
As long as he gets in some sort of limited practice by Friday, then you should be fine with him. Bruce Arians right now says he's playing, so didn't practice on Wednesday.
Josh Jacobs may play this week. We'll have to keep you updated on that. Derrick Henry missed practice, but he's expected to play. Damian Williams practiced. Oh, that's fun.
Just stay away. Stay away from all the Chiefs running backs.
It's not fun at all, Adam. What are you talking about?
No, it's not fun.
I would like to make sure that Damian didn't get dropped this week, because if he comes back and just assumes the role that he's had most of the time that he's played, you might want to use him next week.
Okay.
Against Chicago?
You might.
You'd
start Hicks unless Hicks comes back.
Oh, Hicks is back?
He could be back next week, I think.
He could be back this week, I'm pretty
sure.
Could
he? I thought it was week 16. You might be.
I thought it was
Get
16
on
too.
it, Dave. Somebody look it up, because I think it's this week. James Conner practiced.
I'm going to put
full.
Adam at plus 180 here.
Hey, by the way, Heath.
Yes.
Yesterday, I gave that stat about Philip Lindsay averaging 3.8 yards per carry.
You find out where you got it from?
The last 4 games.
Last 4 games. I figured it was a split. You can usually guess. If it's YPC, it's a split for Adam Azer.
James Conner practiced at full. Alexander Madison missed practice. Bo Scarborough was limited. Devontae Freeman was limited with a knee injury. Makes it even easier to get away from Devontae Freeman. Adam Thielen is expected to play this week. I haven't seen him in your rankings yet. Where do you think you're going to rank Adam Thielen at the Chargers?
I think it's going to be closer to 24 than 12.
Courtland Sutton range.
Yep. That's good. Adam, I think you got us on this one with Akeem Hicks.
Wow.
Heath is wrong.
He practiced in
Part 2.
full on Wednesday. This is according to NBC Sports
But
Chicago.
is he eligible to return this week?
It looks like
Yeah.
he is. It looks like he is.
I really am not happy that I'm starting Aaron Jones. Like, I know I'm starting Aaron Jones, but I might be gutsy enough to start Miles Sanders over Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I don't think I would, but I think it sucks that Aaron Jones has a brutal matchup in Week 15. Will Fuller's questionable. Julio Jones was limited in practice. Tyler Lockett is back to full strength, according to Pete Carroll. Tyler Lockett or Robby Anderson?
Lockett.
It's Lockett, but I don't feel good about either one.
T.Y. Hilton feels better, but he doesn't know if he'll play this week.
You're not playing Hilton, but you should keep that in mind with Pascal.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. Unfortunately, it's Monday night, but yeah. Mike Williams was limited in practice. DJ Chark has not been ruled out yet. I think it seems like he's not going to play, but
Is he
hasn't
still
been ruled
scooting?
out. No, I think he's out.
Okay.
DJ Chark.
Well, I guess he's got a chance.
But then again, I'm not sure, and I want to go out on a high note with the Akeem Hicks thing. So. Tampa Bay wide receiver Scotty Miller practice. Does that get you out of Rashad Perryman or Watson?
I prefer the Dolphins guys currently because I don't think Parker. He has a chance to play, but I don't think he's going to play.
Well, Hearns is also hurt.
There we go. Isaiah Ford. All of the Isaiah Ford.
Not a bad
Devontae
DFS
Parker,
start throw.
But Devontae Parker does have a chance to play. He's making some progress with the concussion.
Same with Albert
We
Wilson.
talked
too.
about that on the DFS podcast, Dave.
Yes.
Oh.
And, Marvin Jones out, and I didn't mention Danny Amendola yesterday, but he's not a bad flyer against Tampa Bay. And Nelson Aguilar is questionable at Washington. Evan Ingram was limited in practice, but we've seen this story. Gerald Everett still day-to-day, so still looking good right now for Higbee. Greg Olsen was limited in practice. He has a concussion. Ian Thomas certainly would be in play against Seattle. Noah Fant missed practice, but he could play. And David Njoku was limited in practice. And so actually pretty big defensive injuries. Sheldon Rankins and defensive end Marcus Davenport are out for the season for the Saints.
Huge. And they've taken a hit at linebacker as well. Their front seven is not in the shape that it once was.
Yeah, Marlon Mack's going to have a good game.
I legitimately think he could.
I may come around on Mac a little bit. I've got him as a sit right now. I may come around on him. I'll look at that again.
He's in my top 24 years.
Ooh.
Oh, top 20. Yeah, no, I think it's a good opportunity.
Yep.
Just, again, with those guys being out.
And I know people are worried about the carries because 2 weeks ago he only had 14, but then he broke his hand. And then last week he only had 13, but he was coming back from the broken hand.
I worry that he doesn't play on passing down still. I think
Oh,
he'll
yeah,
I
that's
think
going to be
he's
the case.
Going to play on passing downs. He's a much better non-PPR guy than PPR, but I still think that you're talking about what the Colts' game plan is probably going to be early, and what the defense looks like now for the Saints. That plus their red zone opportunity.
So you have Mac ahead of Peterson?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you? I think they're really similar.
And I get where you're coming from on that, but I just think Mac's better.
Mac
Better
or
offensive
Mostert?
line. Raheem.
It's close for me in non-PPR. PPR, I'd still go Mostert just because those 2 catches that he'll get will help him.
I'll go Mostert.
Falcons.
Akeem Hicks expected to play. Kevin King limited in practice. It's Green Bay's cornerback. Told you about the San Francisco injuries. Seattle could get Ezekiel Ansah and Michael Kendricks back at Carolina. Oh, Washington's going to be without Quentin Dunbar. Has been a top cornerback for them. But, they're facing the Eagles, who have no passing game right now. So real quick, here's a segment called Heath is Wrong. I know you've all been waiting for it. Dave, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who is the commissioner of the 14-team PPR podcast league, the original one, not the one we were talking about on yesterday's show? Who's the commissioner of that podcast league?
I believe it's you.
And how do you know it's me? Like, what gives you that impression?
Besides the picture of a cat on the front of the league that's got your face on it?
No, it's Nicolas Cage's face, I think.
I thought that was your face.
No.
Why is Nicolas Cage's face on our podcast league?
Because he's a cat. It's like a meme thing. I send out the emails, right? I pick the people who are in the league. I set the playoff
I ignore
matchups.
the emails. Yeah.
Okay, but I do all that stuff because I'm the commissioner.
Okay.
Did you know that you're also the commissioner and Heath is also the commissioner because you guys have commissioner access? Would you consider yourself the commissioner of the podcast league, Dave?
No, but I think if there's a
you're
problem,
not. That's the answer. You're not.
Are you a
Heath is wrong.
co-commissioner? Can you do anything
he's
the
not.
commissioner can do?
He's not.
if I've
a
got the
co-commissioner.
access, then technically I can.
You are a co-commissioner, right?
By that
I can't wait till
by that definition, yes.
till the
Is
end of
this
the show.
regulating?
when he rushes us through games on this.
Okay, let's get going. 60
Mount
seconds
up.
ranking disputes.
Wait, why is he
We already
wrong?
talked-
You never said why he's wrong.
Yeah, you kind of bailed on that.
No,
I guess Heath is right.
I think I won that segment.
Congratulations.
No, if you listen to yesterday's show, you know Heath thinks that I'm the commissioner of a league because I have
Co-commissioner.
commissioner access.
I haven't done a dang commissioner thing for the podcast.
That Heath is wrong was wonderful.
Yeah.
Heath is wrong. The Heath is off. Jared Goff. Let's talk about that. 60-second rankings disputes, and you only have 60 seconds. Dave and Jamie have him 8th and 9th, respectively, at Dallas. Heath has Jared Goff 23rd. Heath is wrong. You start on Goff.
He has looked better the last couple of weeks, but still last week just had 19 fantasy points. And you look at since the bye, 3, 4, 4, 28, 19. I've referenced Gardner Minshew a lot in talking about like Baker Mayfield and Matt Ryan because I know that I've stuck with him longer than other people and maybe should have given up by now. But again, Gardner Minshew has been better than Jared Goff has been this season, 15% better in terms of fantasy points per game. And that includes a half where you wasn't even the quarterback for the whole game. So I don't want to trust Jared Goff, a quarterback who's been very bad in fantasy for most of this season.
But he has
Jamie,
been...
you're up. I'll give this one to Jamie. Dave, you'll be next.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't look at season at this point versus what's happening right now. And the Cowboys defense stinks, and Goff is playing well. I know the 19 points or 18 points?
He had 19 last week.
19 last week. He had a throw that was a pick six that was Robert Woods stopped on the route that shouldn't have been an interception, let alone a pick six. I think this game's going to go back and forth, up and down, and so I think it's going to be a lot of scoring. So with the way Goff is playing right now against his Dallas defense, which is banged up and not playing very well, I think Goff keeps it up for another week, so I think he's got another 20-plus point game in him.
What do Jeff Driscoll, Josh Allen, and Mitchell Trubisky have in common?
Dave, you're not in this one.
Sorry, Adam is wrong. Answer my question.
What do Jeff Driscoll? They all
Driscoll,
did well
Josh Allen,
Cowboys.
Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, they all crushed the Cowboys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Miles Sanders is next. Dave, you're the low guy on him. 25th in non-PPR, 26th in PPR. Heath and Jamie have Miles Sanders around 15th, 14th or so. Even 12th in non-PPR. So, yeah, Dave, you're the low guy on Sanders.
I'm scared that Boston Scott is a real deal and that what he gave the Eagles last week in terms of another element to their offense and someone that has some speed is going to be alluring to their coaching staff, and the 85% snap rate that we saw from Miles Sanders is going to dissipate. He's going to end up splitting with Boston Scott. It's a great matchup against Washington. There's no doubt about it, but it makes me nervous. I'm calling him a low-end number 2 running back.
Let's go Jamie. Jamie, you're pro Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, he despite everything Scott did last week, Sanders still had 19 total touches. So I don't think it's all of a sudden he's going from a game where he was cramping and had to leave the game to a situation where he's going to be worse than 19 total touches. I think Scott's got a great role carved out for him in a team that needs receiving help. And so when they're in some obvious passing situations, he's going to be on the field. I just think that they're going to be playing with the lead, have an opportunity to lean on their run game. That's still going to be Sanders. There's no chance I'm getting away from him this week against Washington.
Okay, and we got to see, obviously Jordan Howard has to be out, but we're not planning on having Howard at this point. Kenyan Drake is next. Let's go Heath versus Dave. Heath, you have Kenyan Drake top 17, 17th in non-PPR, 15th in PPR. Dave has him 27th in PPR, 34th in non-PPR. Dave and Jamie both have Kenyan Drake outside the top 24. This will be definitely his best matchup of the year with San Francisco. He has faced some really, really good run defenses. So Heath, make the case for Kenyan Drake.
San Francisco?
Sorry, he's faced San Francisco twice.
Oh, sorry.
Right, sure.
With Arizona. He's faced San Francisco twice, Tampa Bay, the Rams, and the Steelers. Now he gets the Browns. Go ahead, Heath, on Kenyan Drake.
Even with David Johnson getting more involved, even with Chase Edmonds coming back from injury, we've seen at least 14 touches from Kenyan Drake in every game with the Cardinals. And this Browns run defense, 4.7 yards per carry, bottom 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs in the last 2 weeks, absolutely destroyed. The Bengals backs had 232 total yards. You can chop that up 2 or 3 different ways.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of room for a running back to be good. The Steelers, without James Conner, at 131 in a score in week 13. I think Drake's a solid starter this week.
You know, I actually started the week feeling that way, and you mentioned David Johnson, and he's starting to pick up a little bit more work and a little bit more work, and Drake is starting to play a little bit worse and a little bit worse, and I wonder if that's going to be closer to a 50-50 split than, what was it last week? Probably along the lines of 65-35. I like Drake as a flex. I don't have any problem with that. I don't like that he has 3 games in his last 4 with single-digit PPR fantasy points. So I'm nervous about him finding double digits. And it gets worse if David Johnson starts to take work.
It was 14-5 last week in terms of touches. So like
touches, yes, but playing time I think also could start to shift too, and that'll hurt the touches.
Well, I've gone back and forth on Drake as well. I think the one thing that I'm curious about is if this is the end for David Johnson in Arizona, which I don't know what the contract situation is if they can move on from him. It's the last home game in Arizona, and I think they like him. I think they respect him. I don't think it's we don't want you around. But he may not just be the right fit for Cliff Kingsbury. And so I wonder if this is almost we'll give you a little bit more work, like Dave said. He had the touchdown last week. So I just wonder what the scenario is for David Johnson in terms of how the Cardinals treat him in this game.
And in case you're wondering about the contract, he would cost $16.2 million of dead money and $2 million negative $2 million in cap savings. They would not save any money by cutting David Johnson, but trading David Johnson. Huh?
Post-June too?
I think it changes after post-June 1st, but I think trading him is going to be the way that they go. And I wonder if there's a team in the NFC South that might be interested in adding a running back that might have experienced drafting and leaning on David Johnson.
Bruce Arians would probably like him back.
I think so.
All right, that's going to do it for the 60-second rankings disputes. Thank you, guys. I'm going to throw out just a stat, and you're going to give me a real quick analysis. Let's go Heath, Jamie, Dave. Heath, you get this one. It's about Alvin Kamara. He's facing the Colts. In their last 11 games, only 2 running backs have had more than 10 fantasy points in non-PPR or 12 fantasy points in PPR against the Colts. Jalen Samuels, who had 13 catches for 73 yards, and Derrick Henry, who was amazing. They've been very, very good other than that. You think Alvin Kamara gets more than 12 PPR fantasy points this week?
I do. In PPR, I'm really just not even considering what I'm doing with Alvin Kamara because I do expect he's going to catch 6 or 7 passes, and I'm just not going to sit him, especially in that building. In non-PPR, I'm a little bit worried about Kamara this week. Like when we thought, even now, we're not ranking Josh Jacobs, so I've got DeAndre Washington ahead of Alvin Kamara in non-PPR. But I think in PPR, you just start him.
All right, Jamie, this is not quite a stat, but it's worth noting. This is Oakland's last home game in Oakland. So,
Or the Raiders' last home game in Oakland. I think Oakland's going to stay in Oakland.
Well, they're in negotiations. But this is the Raiders' last home game in Oakland. Yeah. Does that mean anything, that storyline, like in terms of game script or anything?
It does when you're looking at a team that's coming across the country that the last thing they want to do is get on a plane. Absolutely. I think Derek Carr's going to have a monster game. I think Josh Jacobs or DeAndre Washington has a great game. I think Tyrell Williams is going to find the end zone. Darren Waller, I think, is going to play well. All the main guys for Oakland are in play this week because Jacksonville is so bad, and you have the sentiment of what that building will be. I think it's going to be electric. I think it's going to be an opportunity for the Raiders to go out in Oakland with a big win against a team that stinks. And as Pete Prisco Drink has told us time and time again this week, Keith is probably tired of hearing it. The Jaguars' history going to Oakland has been miserable. So in their history, so it's all set up for bad team, bad defense, bad opponent, don't want to be there, and a team. I think Derek Carr has sort of embodied this Oakland, move, taking on the fan base and sort of saying, we're still here for you, and I think he's going to give them a strong performance in the last game there.
You know who this game means the most to? Gruden. He loves the black hole, so I would imagine he'll try and pull out all the stops.
Dave, this one's for you. New England, they face the Bengals this week. They've allowed 1 rushing touchdown to a running back this season. It was Gus Edwards. What does that mean in terms of Joe Mixon?
I'm still starting Mixon. I think Cincinnati gives the Patriots a game, believe it or not. I know that sounds weird, but I think Mixon can get 100 total yards as a minimum, and I think he's got a chance to find the end zone. I know this Patriots defense has been great, but Bengals have been playing a little bit better, both sides of the ball.
100 total yards is the minimum?
Yeah. I think he'll get you double-digit non-PPR points.
I take the under on the total yards.
Okay.
All right, Heath, this one's for you. I give this stat a lot. Maybe it means something for Sony Michel. 15 straight running backs with 15 or more carries against the Bengals, going back to last year, have 91 rushing yards or a touchdown. 6 for 6 this season.
I think definitely the Patriots running backs will combine for that, without a doubt. I have very little idea who it will be. Sony Michel's snaps and carries are trending in the wrong direction. I can't start him, and I will acknowledge that this could be a game where Sony Michel gets 25 carries for 130 yards and scores 3 touchdowns. I have no reason to believe that he's even the lead running back right now.
There's a few scenarios for me that I think guys can have standout performances this week. he's the definition of it. 100%. The Bengals are bad. He should get a lot of carries, like you said, Adam. The track record speaks for itself. I don't care. He's going to do it on my bench.
Right.
I cannot trust him. It's how I feel about Baker.
Well,
I think Baker can have a great game. I think
shouldn't that be how you feel about Tyrell Williams?
I feel a little bit more confident in Tyrell Williams because of what the Jacksonville defense looks like, but same type of thing. It's just a matter of,
he's getting nothing.
Tyler Lockett,
He's
too.
Terrible.
Well, the three for me are Baker, Tyler Lockett, and Sony Michel when I think of this. I think they can all play great. I just don't have a trust factor that it will happen. And Tyrell Williams is fine. You're 100% right. He's in that same category. I just feel a little bit differently about him just knowing what this Jacksonville defense looks like.
The number was 15 carries, Adam.
Uh-huh.
That's how many carries Sony has in his last 2 games.
Combined.
Yeah, but one they were chasing points, and what was the last game?
And one they were ahead.
Chiefs.
They were
maybe
they won't be ahead or behind.
No,
they lost
ahead.
both games.
They lost both games. They were behind for the Houston. It was Houston and Kansas City, right?
Yeah, he has 8 games this year.
Games,
surprisingly, 8 games with 15+ carries.
Yeah, I think he's a good DFS play if you want to go that route for FanDuel. Just with the contrarian option of him, he could have 2 touchdowns. It wouldn't be a surprise. He had a 3-touchdown game against the Jets early this season. So if he gets to work, he should be fine. And they're getting Karras back. That'll help. At least that's the expectation. Yeah. So, there are reasons to like Sony Michel, but I don't care. I mean, I just the last thing I'm doing is going into my semifinals with, and you're right, Tyrell Williams is the same type of player. Guys who have just been disappointing across the board for several weeks. It's just hard to say I feel comfortable starting them. Odell's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my last stat. You guys have 10 seconds to give analysis on this because we got to get moving to the games. Odell Beckham has 6 or more targets in every game except for one, which was last week. If you get 6 or more targets against the Cardinals, you are going to have a good game. 17 out of 19 wide receivers who have had 6 or more targets against the Cardinals have had either 80 yards or a touchdown. Starter sit Odell Beckham.
He's a number 2 receiver for me. Couldn't keep him out of my top 24.
I could. He's just outside.
Great.
Yeah, he's outside mine too. I would start Courtland Sutton is kind of like the line, and he's just behind Courtland Sutton for me.
Yeah, I'd start Sutton over him too.
I would too,
or
but
flex at best.
They're both top 20.
Start, sit, or flex at best for some of the games that we're getting to later in the show, which will be about 2 hours from now. John Brown at Pittsburgh.
Sit.
Flex.
How about, yeah, we knew that. Cole Beasley at Pittsburgh.
Flex.
PPR flex.
Who do you like better, Brown or Beasley?
Beasley.
Brown.
Like the Bills, I like Beasley better.
Devin Singletary at Pittsburgh.
Flex.
Start.
Good enough to start.
James Conner against Buffalo.
Start.
Flex.
Singletary or Conner?
Singletary.
Conner and non-PPR, Singletary and PPR.
Yes, that.
Philip Lindsay at Kansas City.
Start.
Ahead of Singletary and Conner?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Singletary's had 78 or more total yards, or 70 or more total yards in 5 of his last 6 games. He gets a lot of work. A Kansas City running back against Denver. Sit them all?
Nope.
Okay. Talked about Courtland Sutton. We talked about Joe Mixon. How about James White at Cincinnati?
Start PPR.
In PPR.
Yep.
Really? Has he justified that though? He really hasn't, except for the Houston game. If they're
last 2 weeks.
Last 2 weeks, right?
Last 2 weeks he's been 11 or more PPR points.
Just like he has pretty much all season long.
He had the one bad game 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, not great though. Tyler Boyd against New England.
Sit.
Flex in PPR, sit otherwise.
Heath, do you like Tyler Boyd in FanDuel?
I don't.
Okay. Give me 1 or 2 players that you really like in FanDuel.
I really, really like Chris Carson. I would just like to play him in every lineup and figure the rest out. And I like Julian Edelman, the other wide receiver in that game, because they don't really have any other wide receivers that are playing very well right now.
Jamie and I might disagree on Danny Amendola versus Robby Anderson, but Amendola is 5,400 on FanDuel.
Ooh.
That's a good
price.
price.
All right, see, that's what you do. You got to find those values and put them in a FanDuel lineup or 10 FanDuel lineups or 100, whatever you want to do. Play as many as you want for as much money as you want. Play high stakes, play, $1, play 50-50 and, keep it kind of safe and easy to cash. But listen to our advice. Listen to that DFS bonus pod and get in our league, FanDuel.com/league/FFT. But you're going to love FanDuel. If you love fantasy football, there's no reason why you won't love playing more fantasy football on FanDuel. It really is very fun. I'm enjoying it more and more every year, every week. I'm just loving it. And looking forward to bouncing back. Week 14 wasn't great. Week 15 will be better. Looking forward to bouncing back this week. If you haven't signed up yet for FanDuel, you can actually get this great offer. You put in $20, you get 20 back, $5 per week for 4 weeks. FanDuel.com/league/FFT. FanDuel.com/FFT. My apologies. FanDuel.com/FFT. Sign up now. Make a $20 deposit. Get $5 back in site credit every week for 4 weeks at FanDuel.com/FFT. And away we go to the games, the biggest of the week. Houston at Tennessee. Stat of the game. Let's talk about A.J. Brown. Wide receivers against Houston in their last 5 games since they got healthy in their secondary. Only 2 have had more than 50 yards. Keelan Cole and Julian Edelman. Only Edelman and Seth Roberts have caught a touchdown. They've faced Jacksonville, Baltimore, the Colts with a hobbled Hilton, the Patriots, and Denver. So not the best, but they've been pretty good against receivers in their last 5 games. A.J. Brown is obviously a hot topic. We talked a lot about him yesterday, so we won't spend that much time today, guys. But, I think you all have him in your top 20, I believe. Is that right?
24.
Right
24.
24? All right. So, Jamie, you want to tell us how you feel about A.J. Brown and who you'd start him over?
Just give him 5 targets. Every time in Ryan Tannehill's starting tenure since week 7, he's had 5 or more targets. He's had 12 or more PPR points. So it doesn't take a lot, but that's all he needs based on what we've seen. So I think he's a starter. Look, it's a secondary that's beatable. It's a quarterback that's playing well. This has been his favorite target, or most consistent target, most consistent producer. So, I think this is one of those guys that you ride the hot hand, and in a matchup where I think they'll have a chance to throw on, I'll take my chances with him.
Like, I would start A.J. Brown over Odell Beckham. I said this earlier in the week. You have to, if you put A.J. Brown in your lineup, you have to be okay with knowing a 3 could be there next to his name at the end of the day.
There with Beckham too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's no safety with Beckham.
Beckham to me is an easy one. Like, I think it's I'm trying to think of somebody that's tough.
Sutton's tough for me. I've got him over Sutton too. I do too.
All right. It is risky. I don't really want to start those guys that could give me a 3, but hey, he'd give you a 30, I guess. Well, not quite that, but he can give you a 20. All right, so let's stick with the Titans here. And Ryan Tannehill, last I checked, was a top 7 quarterback for everybody. 5, 7, and 7 for Jamie, Dave, and Heath. So start Ryan Tannehill. We can compare it. Basically, start him over everybody that's not Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. That's it for Jamie. Also, Jameis Winston and Garoppolo for Dave, Russell Wilson and Prescott for Heath. You're starting Ryan Tannehill. You're starting Derrick Henry. Any interest in Jonnu Smith, as the Texans have been a little vulnerable against tight ends lately?
No.
I'm not comfortable enough for that.
All righty. So sit Jonnu Smith. Let's go to the Texans. Deshaun Watson, easy must start.
Yeah.
Start him.
Mm-hmm.
Highest floor, highest ceiling of any quarterback.
Well,
the running backs.
I think so.
What do you think? Hyde and Duke?
No.
Prefer Duke, but don't want to start either.
Prefer Duke in PPR, Hyde in non-PPR. Not really interested in starting either one.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't win this game, it's probably not going to be good for Hyde. He doesn't do well in their losses. Now, for Duke Johnson, you look at his receiving totals in his last 6 games. In 4 of those 6 games, we're talking 4 or more catches, 33 or more yards, 2 touchdowns. He's had 2 total duds, but he's starting to become a little bit more of a consistent PPR threat. Let's elaborate a little bit on Duke Johnson, I guess is what I'm saying. And the Titans allow the fifth most receiving yards to running backs. Flex and PPR?
Flex and PPR, I would still, I'd rather start Odell over him in PPR.
Yeah.
But I would start him over Terry McLaurin. I might be alone on that one, but I'd start him over Tyler Boyd for sure. He's a flex.
All right. Okay. DeAndre Hopkins are starting. How about Will Fuller if he plays?
He'd be just behind that Sutton group.
Yeah. Boom bust number 3.
But I'd like his chances because that Titans secondary is so beat up. They're missing so many guys there that I think Houston could trail in this game, and that would help Fuller out.
The only thing would be is, would he be able to finish the game? Because is he coming back just because it's a huge division game? Is he rushing back? We saw the last time he played, he was, pulling at his hamstring. He finished that game, but we haven't seen him since.
I'm trying to figure out if this Titans defense is good. I mean, they're 9th in scoring defense. They're 19th in total yards. They're 16th in yards per play. They seem very average or slightly above average. They struggle against tight ends. They're pretty good against the run. But also, as Dave mentioned, their secondary is beat up, and this will be a real test for them. And Will Fuller, I mean, you think about this. Will Fuller, if he catches those touchdowns against Kansas City, then we're talking about him being like amazing for 3 straight games and then bad against the Patriots, but he had a long touchdown overturn. We're basically talking about never even thinking about sitting Will Fuller, I think. So I guess what I'm asking is Will Fuller or A.J. Brown?
A.J. Brown.
Which universe are we in? Are we in the universe where all the touchdowns didn't count or all of them did?
Look, he gets open. He's really good. Like,
I think he is really good, yes. But I'm saying in that other universe, you were like, I was getting pretty excited about starting Will Fuller for just a second there. Like, if he didn't get hurt and drop passes and have touchdowns called back, it'd be awesome. I'm starting A.J. Brown.
You see the potential. All right, A.J. Brown. If you were going to gamble on a tight end, because both teams kind of struggle against tight ends here. Darren Fells, Jordan Akins, Jonnu Smith. Who would it be?
Jonnu.
I'd go Akins.
Jonnu.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd just say Fells.
That would have been better if you just said Fells and then no.
Yeah, but who wants to start him?
8 catches, touchdowns.
At one point,
ends.
he was the touchdown leader in tight ends.
Yeah. 8 tight ends have caught a touchdown against Tennessee.
Akins had 9 targets last week.
Which means it's a Fells week coming.
It could be.
Okay, sit them and sit the DSTs in this game. Minnesota's at the Chargers. Very much looking forward to this game. So I don't know that we have to get into Kirk Cousins again. Heath and Jamie have him 24th. Dave has Kirk Cousins 12th. We heard the arguments. Not a good matchup, but he's done well in some good matchups. So if you want to rewind to the players we love, I think that was in. Dave mentioned Kirk Cousins. Dalvin Cook start. And Alexander Madison. Any interest in him if he plays?
No. He's going to look great on the bench.
Yep.
Okay. Well, he did have a lot of work last week, but I
still don't want to drop him.
That's super. He's going to look great on my bench.
See, you said on your bench this time, but the first time you said he's going to look great on the bench, which made me think that he wasn't going to play much.
Yeah, I think he probably stays standing up most of the time because he kind of rotates in and out. If he's all the way over on the bench, he might not even hear the coach tell him to go in.
I was referring to my fantasy team's bench and not the actual bench. That's where Amir Abdullah is.
How do we go about the Minnesota wide receivers here? Because Diggs, is actually a little bit different in the rankings. I think Dave has him like 24th, and Heath and Jamie have Diggs around 10th or 12th. But you don't have Thielen ranked yet, so
that's so funny to me because they don't like Cousins, and I like Cousins, and they've got Diggs as a top 12.
How do you think of Cousins getting his numbers if Diggs is
because
good?
I think he's just going to. He does what he always does.
Rudolph.
Maybe it could be for Rudolph. Maybe it could be for BC Johnson. Look, Kirk has used everybody. He's had big games without Diggs doing well before. Yeah, Dalvin Cook gets involved.
I wonder though, has he? And I'm not saying I know the answer to this. I don't want to get azered. I wonder if he's had any good games this season without Adam Thielen, where Stephon Diggs has also been bad. Like the Chiefs game is one I can think of.
He's had like
right?
3 of them. He has for sure.
Cowboys game? Did Diggs have a big game there?
I'm looking
because that was the 2 touchdowns for Kyle Rudolph.
He had 23 PPR points in week 11.
Week 11 against Denver, Diggs had 5 for 121 with a touchdown.
The week before that was Dallas. He had 7 PPR points.
And that was Kyle Rudolph had 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Kansas City, Dallas, and Seattle. Kirk Cousins did well against all 3 of those teams. Stephon Diggs did not have 50 yards in any of those games, nor did he score a touchdown.
Yeah.
And Thielen didn't play in any of those?
I'm going to move Diggs up.
Thielen did not play in any of those. If he
Last
did,
3 games,
he played a snap against Kansas City, but no, he basically didn't play against them.
Last 3 games, 23
Diggs will move down
in
if
PPR.
Thielen plays.
Yep.
If Thielen stays out, this is where Diggs will be for me. I would still prefer Diggs over Thielen. I just think you have to worry about Thielen with how many snaps he'll play. Again, this is the perfect trap game for the Vikings. They have the Packers and the Bears to close the season, and this is a game, I know the crowd, take that for what it's worth, it's still a road game for them where they have to get on a plane and travel. And so the Chargers right now are one of those teams you don't want to play because they're finally getting healthy, and their defense is going to be good, and I think it's going to be a tough game for this Vikings offense all the way around.
I think Thielen and Fuller are probably the 2 biggest. I'm worried they're going to come back and leave in the first quarter, guys, because like Thielen has practiced several times over the last few weeks and then has a setback. You can't get through multiple days of practice in a row. How is he going to get through 4 quarters?
You can throw Juju in there too, probably.
Yeah, Juju too.
Right. So, and also, like, keep in mind, the Chargers are really good. They give up the 4th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. There have been 2 receivers in their last 8 games with more than 7 non-PPR or 12 PPR fantasy points. They were Corey Davis, of course, and Courtland Sutton. So, we've seen some good DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams had less than 70 yards. Tyreek Hill got hurt. DJ Chark was okay. So we've seen good receivers struggle against the Chargers. That's my point, I guess. Kyle Rudolph, starter sit.
It's the same thing. If Thielen plays, it's an easy sit. If Thielen doesn't play, then he's a borderline starter.
I'm probably going to sit him either way. And I know he scored a bunch of touchdowns, but it ended last week, and so I'm going to pretend like it doesn't exist anymore.
I think you're right. It's probably better to sit him. There's just because there's so many better options out there. So you don't have to start Kyle Rudolph, but he clearly is in a better spot if Thielen is out again.
I feel better about Ian Thomas. I feel better about Dallas Goedert.
Oh, Thomas could be if Olsen plays.
Right. If Olsen comes back, then obviously it stinks. O.J. Howard, who I haven't liked this year.
Oh, I like Howard better too.
They're back-to-back with Howard on top.
Philip Rivers, 73% owned. It's been better the last 2 games. 20 points at Denver, 30 points at Jacksonville.
He's
not dead yet.
He's the best quarterback in this game this week for fantasy.
No, he's not.
He will be.
But he'll be okay.
He'll be better than Cousins.
I think he's the best quarterback in this game as well, but I would also...
Do I have to bet against Philip Rivers here, Jamie?
Do a bet,
sure.
Yes.
Loser shaves their head.
I don't want to shave my head.
I think that would be fantastic. Loser shaves their head.
I'm into that. Yep.
You're going to shave your head?
Yeah, I am.
Why?
Why not?
Look at this beautiful do that you have.
That's okay.
Dave, he's already committed to it.
I'm already halfway shaved,
I have that
so
much
it doesn't
faith
matter.
in Philip Rivers.
Rivers versus Cousins.
I'm not going to do it for a shave to shave my head.
Nobody's shaving their head.
You could do the same bet that Adam and I did.
15 push-ups? We've done that
No,
before.
it's not 15 push-ups. It's the number of push-ups the top quarterback scores.
Sure.
So if Rivers scores 38, you've got to do 38 push-ups.
Easy.
And if Cousins... it's between those two?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
And it's got to be on video.
I'm in.
Okay, great.
Right.
Awesome.
I got to root against... This is the first time I'm going to root against
I actually
Philip
like
Rivers.
Rivers the most. I would start him over Ryan, over Goff, over Baker Mayfield.
Interesting.
I don't love him. He's not a top 12 guy for me, but I would start him over those guys.
How about Aaron Rodgers or Philip Rivers?
I'm starting David Blau over Philip Rivers now.
I have Rivers and Rodgers
I'm not.
projected for the exact same score.
Okay.
I like Rodgers.
Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler.
I learned my lesson about going against the Hall of Famer at home last week.
Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler
which one?
are starting.
Brees.
Drew Brees.
But Rivers
All right,
is
guys,
Hall of
come
Famer,
on, let's
isn't he?
focus here.
Rivers is Hall of Famer.
Adam, we
Okay,
didn't pay attention to anything you just said. What'd you say?
Can we talk about the Chargers running backs here?
Start them both.
Melvin Gordon.
Start him.
In non-PPR, we start Eckler?
Yes,
Start 'em.
both.
Okay. How about, tough to call. Like, would you start Eckler or DeAndre Washington if Jacobs is out?
I would start Eckler in PPR, and I would start Washington in non-PPR.
Yep.
And I would start Washington over Gordon in both.
And I would start Eckler over Gordon in both.
Really?
Chargers wide receivers, start or sit.
You start Keenan Allen, and Williams is a flex.
But I like Williams more than normal just because of the deep shots that he gets. I'm going to lose this bet. The deep shots that he tends to get from week to week.
Because you're realizing that Cousins is
and the
in a bad
Vikings.
spot.
No, I'm riding with Cousins. I'm going to die on this hill. But I do like Mike Williams this week to like as a FanDuel play for sure, and a sneaky non-PPR flex because I think he can make some deep connections against the Vikings.
Yeah. Vikings stink against receivers. They've given up 100 yards or a touchdown to 17 wide receivers in 13 games. Keenan Allen over Courtland Sutton?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But Sutton
Keenan
over Williams.
Allen. How about Keenan Allen? Rank the wide receivers in this game. Let's say Thielen plays. So he got two from the Vikings, 2 from the Chargers.
Allen, Diggs, Thielen, Williams.
Yeah.
The first 2 for sure. I might take Williams over Thielen in non-PPR.
You love Philip Rivers over Kirk Cousins?
You're talking yourself into
This
Philip
is
Rivers
this
over,
is
over Cousins.
this is not going to end well. So let me just be sure that I know what I'm getting myself into. Can I cancel this now?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
It's the
writing.
number of fantasy points Rivers scores.
Right.
That's how many push-ups I'm going to have to do.
Unless Cousins scores more.
Okay. And if it's a tie, we both have to do.
Yes.
the
So
number.
whoever
And it's
wins,
not
it's
decimal.
not like-
not decimal scoring.
whoever wins, the other person doesn't have to do the winner does not have to do push-ups.
No push-ups
Right.
at all.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And it's not Philip Rivers scores 30. If Philip Rivers scores 30, I'm doing 30.
30 push-ups.
But and if it's
in one setting.
Not the difference between the two.
What is difficult about this?
I'm just making it.
I didn't know if we both have to do push-ups. Like if it's 30 to 15, am I doing 15 push-ups?
Now who has to grow the
They
Minshew
tie,
mustache?
you both have to.
No, I didn't know like if I have to do the lesser of the two because I know I'm winning this one.
Hi, Adam.
Let's go back to why Heath was wrong.
Any tight end?
Who's the commissioner?
I think we should start Hunter Henry.
Who's the commissioner of the NFL?
Hey, would you
Are they
stream any
co-commissioners?
tight ends? Come on, would you stream any tight ends over Hunter Henry, who's been kind of uninvolved the last 2 weeks?
Higbee. Is Higbee even a streamer anymore? He's a stud.
I would start Henry over Higbee.
How about Doyle or Henry?
Henry.
All right, Minnesota's DST is 6th and 5th for Dave and Heath, 14th for Jamie. Chargers DST is kind of a sit.
Does Adam Silver have commissioner access?
Cleveland's at Arizona, and Baker Mayfield we've discussed. He's
Wait,
17th
did we
for
talk
Jamie.
about Gordon?
Commissioner
Melvin?
Gordon?
Commissioner Gordon. Okay. Sorry, Adam. I'm done.
All right, Cleveland's at Arizona, and Baker Mayfield not ranked for Heath, 17th for Jamie, 11th for Dave. Very different there, and we talked about that earlier.
No fury like a Baker Mayfield scorned. He's going to beat up on Kingsbury.
If he had the ability to play good at quarterback, why hasn't he done it all year?
Because he hasn't played Arizona every week. He's had some tough
matchups.
My fear last week, and I wonder if it's going to carry over, I think they want Freddie gone. I don't think they're throwing games by any stretch. It's just this just feels like such a disaster, this whole team, this whole season. You have Beckham going through the motions of playing through this groin injury. Who knows if he's going to be able to play 4 quarters. Again, I could see Baker having a top 5 performance. I see why Dave likes him. I totally get it. I just can't trust him. I honestly just don't feel like I'm going into – if I got by last week with Baker in my lineup, I'm looking for Carr. I'm looking for Eli. I'm looking for somebody who's at least seeming like they're playing better right now and has just as good a matchup.
It's kind of like a bowl game where 2 teams are fairly evenly matched, but one of them is excited to be there because they play in like Conference USA or something, and one of them thought they were going to be in the BCS and they lost their last 3 games.
Maybe like when
Miami
played FIU?
Like when Miami played FIU, except that wasn't a bowl game, but yeah. And so I think the Cardinals win.
Rivalry game.
It was a rival. Well, I don't know if it's much of a rivalry anymore after they beat them.
True.
Like, I think FIU's just better.
True.
So let's talk about the Cleveland running backs.
We couldn't see his face. They took him off camera for a reason. He probably was giving us the double bird.
Nick Chubb, in his last 7 games, is actually the number 15 running back in non-PPR and number 24 in PPR. So he's been good. He just has not been scoring touchdowns. He's still averaging 4.8 yards per carry, but it's weird. His PPR finish in his last 6 weeks, outside the top 24 4 times, outside the top 12 6 times in 7 games. That's Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt, meanwhile, he is the number 22 running back in non-PPR, number 17 in PPR per game since he has returned, since he's played 5 games. And I think they've scored like basically the same amount of fantasy points in PPR in those 5 games.
In all honesty, this is part of the reason why I'm worried about Baker as well, just because they lean on their running back so much.
But they catch passes too, at least in the case.
Yeah,
of
I mean, they're obviously going to catch passes, but I just think you see they're trying to run in the red zone. They're not giving Baker a lot of opportunities at the goal line. Remember that was such a problem for them earlier this season. They had a couple of games where they schemed up Jarvis Landry well. I think it's just that you can run on the Cardinals too. As bad as their pass defense is, their run defense isn't great.
This is just very similar for me to the Chargers running backs. You're just starting both of them. Over the last 3 weeks in PPR, Chubb's number 11, Hunt is number 12. I'm just starting both of them and not really thinking about it.
Okay. Chubb's had one really good game, I think, and
he hates what I just did with those splits.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I think mine are better because I'm going back 6-7 weeks with him, but
Heath was wrong.
What does Gary Bettman think?
Oh my gosh, so not funny. So Jarvis Landry is a must start, and Odell Beckham. Look, I made the case. If you get 6 targets against the Cardinals, you do well. He did horribly against the Bengals last week. He's obviously playing hurt, but I feel like he's been playing hurt all year. So is he just more hurt now? I don't know. But you guys said he's 24, 20, something like that.
I don't think he's most people that have gotten this far with Odell Beckham are not going to sit him when he's playing the Cardinals. But I don't think it's a slam dunk across the board that you should feel he's better than Zach Pascal, that he's better than A.J. Brown, that he's better than Anthony Miller, that he's better than D.D. Westbrook. It's just not a slam dunk. I think those guys all have arguments to be made to be better than him in those situations. I think you like the Dolphins guys better than him, right?
I've got Isaiah Ford really close to him.
If Parker's out, that just kind of shows you that where Beckham is. That's even a scenario. Now again, most people are not going to bench him. Totally get it. If you got this far, the Cardinals, this is the layup. Hopefully he makes the layup. LeBron's not chasing him down.
I will just say, we are giving him a lot of credit for being Odell Beckham by where we have him ranked. If this was another wide receiver that was number 40 for the season,
and this was Robby Anderson,
and had scored 10 points in his last 2 games combined, he'd be in Tyler Boyd range.
Okay, but Deontay Johnson had 6 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown last week. It's also the matchup.
Well, Deontay Johnson has a better quarterback.
Yeah, unfortunately, James Washington got nothing, but it was Deontay Johnson. That's not true, by the way. David Njoku is 15th to 17th in the rankings in non-PPR, 16th to 18th in PPR. He's also a little banged up. You know what the deal. Cardinals give up points to tight ends. We don't really trust Njoku. Starter sit Kyler Murray. He's kind of interesting. Dave's got him as a sit. Heath and Jamie like Kyler Murray. Talk about it.
I just think this is a free Kyler Murray game. I would imagine that if Baker Mayfield's looking at it as I want to stick it to Cliff Kingsbury, wouldn't Kingsbury want to stick it to Baker Mayfield with the guy that he has that fits his system better than Baker Mayfield did? I think Kyler Murray's got a great opportunity here to go out and run around a little bit. We haven't seen him run the last 2 weeks. Last home game in Arizona for the season. I like the setup for him. I just don't think this Browns defense is very good. I also don't think they want to make this road trip. So I always like these scenarios when these teams that are out of it have to make these long-ish trips that they don't tend to play well.
And I just feel the way about Kyler that you do about Baker. Could totally see him having a big game. We just haven't seen it from him lately. Tough to trust him at this point in the year. But, yeah, the Browns' defense isn't anything special at all.
Yeah, 7 of the last 10 quarterbacks to face the Browns have scored 19 or more fantasy points. That's a nice floor there.
And 2 of those were the 2 of the 3 that didn't were Steelers guys, right?
Yep, and Dalton. So basically that's it. Those are the only ones who've had bad games recently against Cleveland.
Yep.
The Arizona running backs, I think we talked about Kenyan Drake. Heath made a nice case for Kenyan Drake. Dave and Jamie have him more as a sit. You're going to start Kareem Hunt over Kenyan Drake?
Yes.
Okay. And yes, maybe not.
Yeah, it's going to be closer for you. Would you start Kenyan Drake or Odell Beckham?
Drake.
Odell.
Do you have any interest in a Cardinals wide receiver?
Yeah, I like Christian Kirk.
It's just so hard to trust him. I know last week was good, but we've seen it before from him where he's great one week and then totally
he's only had
sucky
one bad
the
game.
next.
It was 2 games ago.
Yeah, I like him more in PPR.
Pretty up and down.
It's obviously a PPR, non-PPR thing. The catches are key for him, and the fact that he had 8 catches last week was fantastic in a very tough matchup against Pittsburgh. Now we've seen more inside receivers do well against the Steelers over the course of the season, but I just think this Browns defense is not good. The secondary isn't great. He's I think 6 for 70 type of guy. If he scores, you'll love it. If he doesn't, then you kind of know what you're getting.
I like him better than Beckham in PPR.
I don't. I'll take Beckham. Sure. He had 16 PPR points last week. He had 5 the week before, 10 the game before that, and then before that was the monster, 37 PPR. So total grab bag where you're going with Christian Kirk.
Okay, let's go on to our next game. Colts and the Saints. Jacoby Brissett. Interesting case to be made for him. He's 16th to 20th in the rankings. And, I liked him better when the defensive line was healthy. I thought maybe they wouldn't be able to run the ball, but now things change. When they can run the ball, he doesn't throw as much, obviously. So, okay, Philip Rivers or Jacoby Brissett?
Brissett.
Rivers.
I have Rivers over Brissett.
How about Eli Manning or Jacoby Brissett?
Eli.
The one that's playing the Dolphins.
Okay, you're probably going to sit Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
I think this is a classic Saints primetime game. Opponent is chasing points.
Oh, yeah.
And ends up, they're going to try and run early, and I think Mac will have some success early. But they're going to be behind, and I think Brissett, as we saw last week, and last week was the first time he actually looked healthy, since the knee injury. He was moving around a little bit better. I obviously, T.Y. Hilton, I'm sure, is going to swing it for, how you would view Brissett if we find out that T.Y. is able to practice Friday and Saturday and is good to go. But I just think you're kind of seeing a Saints defense that is really, really beat up, pass rush isn't going to be an issue for him. So I think you're going to see Brissett have an opportunity to get 20-plus points this week.
He had 20-plus points last week. He had 16 or fewer in the 5 games prior.
Yeah, and again, I don't think he was 100% healthy. Plus, he's facing a defense that I think could be very similar. Tampa Bay's defense is bad, and I think the Saints' defense is trending that way.
Who's a better flex, Marlon Mack or Zach Pascal?
Pascal PPR. If Hilton plays, it's going to be Mack.
If Hilton plays, it's Mack. If Hilton doesn't, it's Pascal for me in both.
It's Mack for me in non-PPR and Pascal in PPR.
Yeah, I'm starting Pascal. I mean, you need a lot of targets typically to do well against the Saints, but they see a lot of targets. 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers, 7th most targets from wide receivers, and Drew Brees is just unbelievable in primetime. He is going to score a lot of points, and Zach Pascal's had 19 targets in his last 2 games. So, he's a top 20 wide receiver right now in the rankings, and 25th for Heath in PPR. But, obviously things would change if T.Y. Hilton plays, so keep that in mind. And Jack Doyle is top 12. You can start Jack Doyle, but you're going to start Tyler Higbee over him. Would you start Jack Doyle or Ian Thomas if Greg Olsen is out?
Thomas.
I'll take Thomas.
Okay, great. And let's go over to the Saints. You basically, like Lamar Jackson might be the only quarterback to start over. Start Drew Brees. He's top 5 for everyone. He's 2nd for Jamie. He's 3rd for Dave. Start Drew Brees. He's going to be awesome. Alvin Kamara. So Heath already weighed in a little bit on Kamara. Does anybody have any thought to sitting him in non-PPR?
I think if you have only 2 running backs and you have Carson and you picked up DeAndre Washington, I would sit Alvin Kamara.
I'm with you on that. And I thought Latavius Murray looked better last week. I thought he played, I think he was more explosive and looked better. And I wonder if the Saints coaches see that and they give Murray more carries and Kamara more of a role in the passing game.
I think he's been a more efficient runner since Kamara came back from injury.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I think Murray is better. I will look up those numbers, Adam.
But look, that might be the case, but that almost sounds like Kamara hasn't been efficient. And before last game, he was averaging more yards per carry this year than he was last year. So he's been very good. He just hasn't scored. Now, last week was just a straight-up bad game for Alvin Kamara. But before that, the storyline was on pace for more total yards than he had last year, just on pace for 4 touchdowns. So, it's not a good matchup, as I mentioned. The Colts do not give up big games to running backs, but Kamara had been playing really, really well until last week. No, it's true. Look at per touch.
He had one game with double-digit non-PPR points.
But not fantasy, though. He's not talking fantasy. He's talking about his
I get it,
his real life.
but we're talking fantasy.
Sure, but I think, at some point he's going to find the end zone. We saw it with Robert Woods. We saw it with Mike Williams. The last thing you're going to do, it's the same thing with Beckham when you're facing the Cardinals if you make it here. You're not benching Alvin Kamara in a primetime home game. I mean,
Exactly.
you'd be crazy to do that. Now, forget about how it's ranked. Forget about how we have it ranked. We just saw the graphic if you're watching us on the YouTube page. He's 90% started. The 3% of people that are benching Alvin Kamara probably haven't changed their lineups for when he was out, and their fantasy league was they weren't paying attention to it. You're starting Alvin Kamara if you made it to the semifinals of your fantasy league.
Okay, so Jared Cook, if he plays, you start him, must-start guy?
Yes.
Start him.
Michael Thomas, we're starting. Any interest in either Josh Hill or Ted Ginn or Traquan Smith, Traquan Smith has had a touchdown catch in 3 of 4 home games that he has played with Drew Brees. How about that?
Neato.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I have
Go down on DFS.
I have Josh Hill ranked as a top 16 tight end because we don't have Jared Cook ranked. So, I think a possibility you could stream.
Yeah, if 14-team league, 16-team league, and none of these guys were available, Thomas or Higbee, obviously, O.J. Howard was picked up or held on to. This is a good pivot play, not a safe one, but a good one, just given what the offense has looked like for New Orleans with the tight end this year.
Jacksonville at Oakland. The Jaguars have lost 5 straight games by 17 or more fantasy points. And, we talk about Alvin Kamara not being so great in fantasy lately. Nick Chubb's been disappointing. Leonard Fournette has also been a little bit disappointing, except for one huge game. We'll get to him in a second. But Heath, you still have Gardner Minshew as a top 12 quarterback, huh?
I have dropped him down a little bit. He is now 17th.
Okay.
Still ahead of Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, those guys, Carson Wentz.
This is what I don't get. I don't see much difference right now. Forget about the season. Right now, between Gardner Minshew and Baker Mayfield and the 2 matchups that they have in front of them.
Well, I don't right now, Gardner Minshew has had a bad 2-game stretch in terms of fantasy points. I don't know how far back we want to go in terms of their fantasy production, but when Baker Mayfield's had 1 good game in the last month,
it's 3 games for Minshew.
Yeah.
I mean, he was so bad he got benched, and then he came back and he's been bad twice.
And now he's going to play without
his
Chark.
most recent game was just a half. Or the second most recent game was just a half.
Fair.
So it's 2
Third
games.
most recent game. No, he started 2 games, hasn't he?
Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
he's been just as bad as Baker
game,
Mayfield.
2.5.
Good
Baker,
half, bad.
Did he start
bad.
against Tampa Bay? I think he did.
Yes.
And then he started against the Chargers.
Yes.
Okay.
And now he's starting against the Raiders without DJ Chark in a game that means something to Oakland.
Look, people aren't going to start Gardner Minshew. He's 23% owned. So let's move on. Any hesitation at all with Leonard Fournette?
No.
It's the same like Kamara for me. I would start DeAndre Washington over him in non-PPR.
You just hate
if Jacobs out.
You hate the single-digit numbers that you see 4 of his last 5 games for Fournette, non-PPR.
Yeah.
Because they're getting blown out, I mean, they're so bad and they're getting blown out.
It's really funny because I was on the Pick 6 podcast yesterday with Will, and he is terrified of the Raiders in this game because the Jags have lost 4 games in a row by 17 points, and it's they're at home in their last game in Oakland, and that number's stuck at 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
And
I get it.
It seems like Oakland should just blow them out, but I think Oakland's really, really bad too.
Yeah,
they are.
It's hard to trust Oakland laying any points, much less almost a touchdown.
And I don't really see a situation where, if they are really fired up and get a 2-score lead in the first half, where that defense is going to hold a team down for a whole second half of garbage.
Oh, not unless that team makes mistakes.
I could see Minshew doing okay and Fournette doing okay because the Raiders are so bad. But your faith in Minshew just is...
He's 17th. That's not faith.
Well, now you've changed it.
Right.
So that makes a little bit more sense. But even... I think the situation with Baker and Minshew is somewhat similar because struggling quarterbacks, playing bad teams on the road. If he had Chark, I'd be all on board with Minshew over Baker. But the fact that he doesn't have his best receiver, and we've seen Westbrook up and down, we've seen Conley up and down, maybe they found a guy in Nick O'Leary. Who knows, and the Raiders stink against tight ends.
But we're starting Dede, right?
Oh, I think you should 100%. But it's just a matter of I think there's a slight higher ceiling for Baker, just because Minshew just feels like he's a little bit lost.
Okay, so we got to talk about Dede Westbrook here. And by the way, if you want to be optimistic about Fournette, I'll tell you this. In their last 10 games, the Raiders have allowed 33 or more receiving yards to 8 running backs and a receiving touchdown to 6 running backs, so he could do well there. And if you get 15 carries against the Raiders, you pretty much always have a good game. Now, Dede Westbrook, only 64% owned. You can still pick him up. I want to be optimistic about him. I like him. I love the setup. Raiders are so bad against wide receivers. They give up the 7th most points. Dede Westbrook is having such a bad year. He's averaging 10.5 yards per catch. He's not doing enough with his targets.
And he has a worse catch rate with Minshew than he did with Foles.
So how much faith should we have? Assuming Chark is
PPR,
out,
he's a flex.
obviously.
He's a flex.
Okay. Would you start Dede Westbrook or, let's say, Kareem Hunt?
Hunt. But I'd start Westbrook over Beckham.
I would not.
Okay. Westbrook or Kirk?
Kirk.
Dede.
I think I have Dede ranked ahead of Kirk right now, but they're kind of the same. I feel like there's a much better chance of Dede getting the targets than Kirk.
If you're in a 35-team league, you can look at Nick O'Leary. Oakland allows the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends. Derek Carr going over to the Raiders, 68% owned, still available. 12th, 19th, and 15th in the rankings for Jamie David Heath. Derek Carr is an option this week. He's been good, at home with good matchups and good weather, basically. 21 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 good weather games. So, he's an option. Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr?
Carr.
Rodgers.
I've got to look.
I'm actually doing that in our FFT league, playing Derek Carr over Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, it's gutsy.
I'll give you that. Carr over Rodgers.
Wow.
Eli or Carr?
Eli.
Carr.
I don't think we have to say much more about the running backs, but if Jacobs plays, start or sit, either of them.
Start Jacobs.
Start Jacobs.
Forget about it. Keep watching on your bench for a week.
If you don't have Washington, is if we don't get a report on Sunday morning, because it is a 4:25 game.
I think after Chris Towers tweeting at Ian Rappaport, he's aware that we're paying attention.
We need it, so Ian's going to pull through for us.
Thank you.
So here's the thing. Like, let's say Josh Jacobs were just completely healthy and DeAndre Washington weren't in the picture. I could see Jacobs being a top 5 running back this week.
I said that to Heath yesterday. I said if this was Jacobs all along, he'd be my top 3.
So where would he be if he plays?
Top 10.
Yes.
Yep. Well, and it also depends how the next 2 days go, because if it goes like Dalvin Cook, where he's a full participant and isn't even on the injury report, then he's probably a top 5 running back.
Right.
If he's
he was limited on Wednesday. Is that right?
If he's limited on Friday and questionable Sunday morning, he's probably like 15th for me.
Okay, we talked about Tyrell Williams earlier. You can take a flyer on him. He's risky, though. And Jacksonville's allowed 7 touchdowns to tight ends in their last 9 games. So that's good for Darren Waller. All right. And by the way, the Raiders' defense is interesting to me because 5 straight DSTs have had good games against the Jaguars.
It's true.
2 of them have been great. And if you follow that storyline and you think they might just blow them out and, go out with a bang.
Chris Conley.
Yes.
Good deep flex if you need him.
All right.
Upside.
Guys,
DFS tournament play, too.
Let's get through two more games here if we can in the next 5 minutes. Patriots at Bengals. Stat of the game. Cincinnati sees the second fewest pass attempts in the NFL, but allows the 3rd most yards per attempt. And now here comes Tom Brady, who leads the NFL in pass attempts. So Brady versus Carr versus Minshew versus Rivers versus Cousins versus Eli. Starters hit Tom Brady.
He's toward the bottom of that group for me.
No trust.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks have been very weird, okay? Against Houston, he needs garbage time to get to 20-plus fantasy points. And then against Kansas City, he should have had 20 fantasy points, but the refs kind of missed that call for N'Keal Harry's touchdown. They couldn't challenge it. But I don't like his completion rate. He's been under 56% 4 straight games. He's been above 20 fantasy points once in his past 5. And I know this sounds weird, but the Bengals defense has started to play a little bit better. And the offensive line is a problem for New England. And the lack of reliable receivers is a problem for Tom Brady. So I'm out on Brady this week. I can't trust him.
Meh.
Okay, and you can't trust Sony Michel, and James White is a fine PPR flex. Would you start James White or D.D. Westbrook?
White.
And I think we view White mostly as a start in PPR, right?
Yep.
Not a flex. Top 20 running back.
I think Brady's in that same category of not being able to trust him. So if he does have a good game, I wouldn't be surprised. If he has another mediocre game, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think he's going to stink. I don't think he's going to go for 12 fantasy points, but I think you're
16?
talking. I would say 16 to 20 is kind of the range for him. I don't think it's like Sportsline has him 7. That's going to be either a bad week for quarterbacks or he's going to have one of his best games, and we just haven't seen that from him. We haven't seen it on the road. This could be a game where we get a pick 6 or some turnover for the Patriots DST. I think this is a grind out game for the Patriots. They get their win and they go home.
I think you guys are overrating James White a little bit. He's been pretty lousy. Because he's been pretty lousy. I mean, since the Sanu trade, and I can't really chalk it up to Sanu anymore.
I mean, he's been good the last 2 weeks, right?
Well, when you say lousy, he had a monster game against the Texans.
Yeah, because they were playing way behind. He had 14 carries in that game, and he got almost all of his production in the. Well, that's not true, but he got a lot of it in the 4th quarter. But he just hasn't been. He's been a dud. Like 11 fantasy points in PPR. It seems like 14 is usually his ceiling. So
11 fantasy points in PPR without scoring a touchdown is a good indicator.
Because he doesn't.
If you score 11 fantasy points in yardage and catches every week, you're going to be a easy top 20 running back.
He hasn't done that. He hasn't done that anymore.
You just asked us D.D. Westbrook versus James White. We said White, and you're making it seem as if we said like we're starting him over the best receiver in football. I mean, that's the scenario of where James White is and where D.D. Westbrook is. I think it's a fair comparison. So
I wasn't trying to make a case for Westbrook, but I understand why it sounded that way. But
no, but what I'm saying is that's a fair comparison. You're talking about the number 1 receiver for Jacksonville in a great matchup, assuming Chark is out, versus a PPR running back that doesn't give you guaranteed huge production. He gives you a pretty decent floor if you look at what his
11,
track
12,
record
13
over the course of the season.
Right.
And so I think this is the floor versus ceiling play. Could Westbrook have a better game? That type of receiver, Christian Kirk, Odell Beckham, the receivers that we've been talking about, Courtland Sutton, absolutely. But the floor is probably safer for James White. And there's also the scenario of, Heath alluded to this, maybe the Patriots realize we got to put our best players on the field at all costs. and stop babying James White and just putting him in passing down situations and occasionally trying to fool people when we're running. Let him be the guy that runs between the tackles. He's better than Sony Michel.
Yeah, but we haven't seen that from them in like 4 years.
Agreed.
So
but
I don't know if now.
We also haven't seen this bad on offense from New England in 4 years too. So they got to be a little creative and do some things. They did it last week when he had Edelman had the pass. They're not scoring at the same level. They got to do something different, and maybe that's what they're going to do different.
Okay, start Edelman, sit everyone else. Dalton. Well, Mixon's an option. Would you go with Mixon or James White in PPR?
White.
Mixon.
Yeah, Mixon. I mean, Mixon has had nothing but tough matchups lately, and he's been pretty good in just about all of them. So
16 or more PPR points in 5 of his past 6. It's a tough matchup, though. I mean, I'm not overlooking this, but I think he can still find some good numbers.
Alrighty, sit Tyler Boyd and Patriots DST back in business, baby. They are top 4. Let's get going here. We need a big game from them. And one more game. We'll save Denver and Kansas City for tomorrow. One more game then is just Buffalo at Pittsburgh. And honestly, I think we've covered a lot of this. Sit Josh Allen and Devin Singletary's, in the James White area, right?
Yep.
In non-PPR. In PPR, there's a pretty big difference for me.
Really? But he might only.
No,
but
I'd start Singletary over White.
I would start Singletary over White too. I mean, 6 catches last week. It's not like he was. Oh, they didn't use him.
Kudos to Buffalo for giving him.
I just don't trust.
Use him at the goal line.
Well, I think just it's similar matchup. Aggressive defense that you have to sort of negate the pass rush a little bit. Josh Allen trying to get the ball out of his hands. I would be surprised if they did something dramatically different.
All right, we talked about John Brown. Heath likes him more than Dave and Jamie. Dave and Jamie have Brown as a 3 receiver, number 3. Heath has him as a number 2, low end. Cole Beasley's a flex, but basically the same as John Brown in the rankings for Dave and Jamie. And what else in this game? James Conner, yeah, he's what? He's like 20th or so.
Low end number 2 running.
He is for me.
I've got him closer to 30. I'd like to. I don't have a great idea of how many touches he's going to get. I don't think it goes back to what it was when it used to be just one guy gets 20 touches per game, but he might get 15-ish. And this is maybe the lowest scoring game of the year, according to Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's 36.5.
30,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they went back to Benny Snell after he fumbled last week, but I wonder how much that sort of sticks in their minds of him losing the ball and now Connor coming back, and Samuels has sort of been a little bit up and down, and now he's banged up. So he may not play. If he's out, then I think it's easy to look at Connor because they're not going to throw the ball to Benny Snell. They haven't done that even with Connor out. So I'm okay with Connor as a low-end starter.
And we're just not going to know how effective he is until he plays, and that might just be how the Steelers take it too.
Practicing in full is such a great sign.
I agree.
That's good.
That matters.
Yeah, but you can't start James Conner and not be a little nervous.
Of course,
you
should be nervous.
It's not.
That's why he's normally like a top 15 type of a running back, and this week he's not because of that.
I prefer him to Joe Mixon, just to tell you how I feel about Mixon.
Yeah, and I'd start Mixon.
Me too. That.
I'm with you.
Which DST do you like better?
It's the Steelers.
It's a tough one. I almost dropped the Steelers for the Bills, but I looked at their game log, and they have been amazing. They're so good. So start them both. Good DSTs this week. And
it's also Buffalo's first primetime game in 100 years.
Fun. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it because you just don't get to see. I know it's going to be low scoring and ugly, but I still think it's going to be a good, close game. And you don't get to see matchups like this in primetime. I can appreciate it. These two teams trying to get by with defense.
Two potential coaches of the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right, guys.
Tomlin should be the coach of the year.
Tomlin should be the coach of the year.
You can make a case for it.
The fact that they're in playoff contention with this roster.
Without Roethlisberger, Connor in and out, Juju hurt.
Not a bad call.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That's it for today's marathon. We'll have another one tomorrow.
It's between him and Jason Garrett. That's the
right.
Or
thanks everyone.
Or Roger Goodell, Gary Bettman,
Rob Manfred.
Yes, all the commissioners, Dave Heath, all the commissioners of the podcast league. That's it. No. Goodbye.